Okay.
Is it time?
No, you're right.
Is that meant?
Can I have other people?
Penny's working today, so she won't be here, and I hear Trent will be here. So let me silent those things. Let's give it one more minute when it's right at 2. Are you texting Trent? No? No. Yeah. Would you say, hey, you coming?
Beautiful day out there, sunny, gorgeous.
Still cold.
Yeah, it's cold, we have to get used to it, it is what it is, all winter time. But I'm not living in Montana and Michigan again. This is okay.
I don't know what the issue is at the fire station, but the wing where all the chiefs are is really cold, and and the rest of the buildings are different, and I guess if they're afraid that there's some weird thing, if you adjust the thermostat, it'll like roast everybody outside or some off the wall, so the chief's wing is constantly at like 65, 68 degrees.
It's probably better to keep the chiefs on ice.
And you can't, and you can put a little space heater in there, but if you have more, like if more than one office in there has a space heater, it trips the breaker. So I just like, okay, I'm not on the top, or I'm not one of the girls, so I don't get it's space heater. I'm just there. I get a candle, I light a candle thinking the illusion of heat might come from the flame, but that's not doing it anymore, so I'm gonna have to get me like a whole pot of candles or something like that and see if that works. I don't know. Maybe, yeah,
Or a meditative.
Right?
Yeah.
It'll go with all the plants I got in there.
Yeah,
I'll be able to have a fern because it'll be so humid, that'd be great.
Yeah, if you just, the candle, get in the lotus position, you'll be good.
Yeah, sure. All right, it's 2:01. Let's go ahead and begin. We'll call this meeting to order at 2:01. Can we get a roll call, please?
Anthony Mitchell,
Present.
Willis not here, Cindy Potter,
here,
Dustin Hawkins.
Who?
Jason Evans here for Jason Paul.
thanks for coming.
Jeremy Green. Hi,
I'm present.
Penny,
Penny Cademo is at work. She couldn't make it.
Steve Webb,
Here.
Dan Glasser. Sandy Clark,
Here.
Brent Hicks. You have one.
We do have a quorum. Oh, good. Let's continue. Is there any public comments? Any public comments on Zoom? Okay, moving on to the regular agenda, the homelessness report project update. Is that you, Taylor, or Melon? Well, it's all yours.
Hello, thank you for having us. Yes, thank you. And we can see the screen that's being shared. Appreciate that. So I'm Madeline Miller. I'm a senior project manager with Echo Northwest. I'm joined by Taylor Burton, my colleague. And this is a project update presentation for you all on the homelessness recommendations report that we've been working on. We wanted to sincerely thank you for the time today and appreciate your attention to the details you provided last time we were here. I believe this is our third time with you, and we were here in September and have implemented the suggestions you all made and are coming back with a strong, what we feel is a much stronger recommendations report for you all, having taken into consideration the ideas and input and feedback of people who have lived experience in your community with homelessness. So appreciate that direction. I will pass it to Taylor to advance to the next slide. Oh, I'm sorry. If you can advance to the next slide, just a quick agenda. We wanted to go over a summary of those interviews that we have assisted in developing. Most of your community members and your service providers did these interviews on our behalf, so we'll get into some of that. And then we'll present with you all some revised recommendations, some restructuring, and a new way to think about the recommendations that we're putting forward. We are hoping to receive the committee's recommendation to advance the recommendations we're putting forward. We want to be able to take these to City Council in late January, early February for adoption. So we are looking to have your approval as they're written or as amended, if you have any additional feedback for us. And that's why we're here today. So we appreciate the time on the agenda.
Okay, so I'll cover this section, which is just going to go over the results of the interviews, where we had several interviews with people who have experienced homelessness. If you can go to the next slide. This is just a brief overview of the interviews. So ECHO and city staff drafted the interview questions together. And then we had assistance from Best Care, Jefferson County Public Health Department, and the Jefferson County Faith-Based Network, who facilitated these interviews entirely. So we're extremely appreciative of these three organizations taking care of those interviews. And fortunately, that means we got 46 interviews, which I think is a pretty good number given the population and just difficulty of identifying people. I want to note that some demographic data was collected across these interviews, but not every organization collected demographic data or did it consistently. So we aren't reporting anything like race and ethnicity or age and gender regarding the interview respondents or regarding the analysis. Next slide, please. So these are the questions that we asked. I won't read through each of them individually, but this is just to give you a sense of what was discussed. So we asked about people's experiences, the challenges they might have faced with either getting into a shelter or getting services or getting permanent housing. We also asked about transportation, specifically between shelters and services, and just generally what people need. So that's kind of what we had the service providers ask during these interviews. Next slide, please. And these are the results of those interviews. So when we asked about experience with homelessness, 95% of the respondents said that they have struggled with homelessness or that they've been homeless for a long time. Some people were saying, you know, I've been homeless for 5 years. This is really difficult, etc. When we asked about their experiences accessing shelter, over 50% said that they didn't have trouble getting into a shelter or finding a shelter. However, that still leaves another 44% who have had issues with that. And then when it came to accessing services, we saw sort of a flip where 65% have had trouble with accessing services. And then even more had troubles accessing permanent housing. And so specifically, they were experiencing a lack of affordability or availability of housing, or they might have didn't have enough money or a job to get money. And then some people didn't have the identification that they needed to complete an application, or the background checks prevented them from being able to get housing. And then there were, of course, sobriety requirements and just the difficulties of navigating the application process or trying to find housing. When we asked about transportation, over half of the respondents said that they didn't have transportation challenges between shelters and services. So that is good news. And then when we asked about basic needs, 23% or 23 of the respondents said that they had issues with financial stability and with getting employment, and that these were the strongest things that prevented them from accessing their basic needs. And then when we asked about, what would an ideal shelter look like, people really wanted a kitchen, bathroom, shower access, laundry, warming and cooling options, private spaces, such like an individual unit or something like that. And then clean and safe environments. And then two things, either a treatment option or a sober living facility. So there were a lot of different needs that came up. So this next slide is just bringing it back to the interviews that we had with service providers rather than people who have experienced homelessness. And I just wanted to bring this information back to sort of show the similarities in what came up. And so there were the issues with affordable and available housing, issues with accessing the shelters and services, some of the coordination struggles between providers. The main area where there was a difference was in the topic of transportation. So a lot of our service providers said that transportation was a large need, but that didn't seem to be as prevalent in the interviews with people experiencing homelessness, though there was still a pretty decent percentage who said that they struggled to access transportation.
I have a couple of questions. Should I wait for that or?
You can go ahead, yeah.
Okay, first one was the trouble with the IDs. Did they say what was the key cause of having a hard time getting an ID?
So unfortunately, they where people said that they had struggles with an ID or a missing documentation, they weren't extremely specific about that. So with a lot of these interviews, some people wrote down on a piece of paper or the interviewer wrote down responses, and they weren't, like long sentences or anything. Some of them were just a couple words here and there. And for the ID situation, a lot of times it just said like missing ID or documentation in response to like what was the barrier or what was the challenge. So we don't have extremely specific information about that.
Okay. My other question I'll hold on to, so please continue.
Okay. Next slide, please. I think I'm passing it off to Madeline.
Thank you. And I'll actually pause if there's any service providers in the room who can elaborate on that question from their perspective. I didn't quite hear on roll call who was in attendance.
Stacy's here with public health. Did you have something?
I think to add on to your question is I would be curious, I saw that public health, best care and. Sorry, one more. Basically, okay. All did the interviews. Was there any prep or training on how to do the interviews so that they're collecting data in a uniform fashion? Because. Just. For data collection purposes.
So this was, we didn't have the opportunity to talk to the individuals specifically. We did prepare the questions and prepare an Excel file in which that they could input the information. When it came to facilitating, this was done outside of the scope of our contract, so we weren't put in touch with anyone. I believe the contact information went through the department. So although we would have liked to ask follow-up questions or ask them to ask follow-up questions, I think we actually received some paper forms and we weren't sure if the interviews were conducted actually as a survey and filled out by individuals themselves. And when it came down to determining who should be doing these interviews, we made the decision to pursue this route because these organizations already have those established relationships in the community, and we felt that we as individuals from Echo Northwest wouldn't have been able to have the trust and the kind of the proper communication and relationships with which to ask kind of these invasive questions.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, 100% support that. I think my purpose of asking is consistency with data collection and how reliable it is. If there was more motivative interviewing for one organization and then strictly survey for another organization. So I'm just trying to understand the scope of how it was collected in general, which tells me how reliable it could be or could not be.
Yeah, and we understand that this is not a statistically significant sample size or method. We do think that we have the raw data in the Excel file, and it does look pretty consistent across questions, various levels of detail across the different questions, but also across the service providers. So it's not like some were one-word answers uniformly at one provider and others were paragraphs. There wasn't major distance differences such as that. But we definitely understand that that this is not a statistically significant exercise.
I'd like to point out for the record, Trent Titus did join us at 2:05. Okay, please continue.
Great, thank you. Okay, so that was the interview, the expanded set of interviews that we participated in. Again, we didn't conduct them ourselves. And that was one of the recommendations from your committee last September. So that's what's been happening in the past several months. And as Taylor noted, it does build on the prior interviews and service provider focus group that we conducted in the summer. So all of that information together with the market analysis, the literature review, and a survey of best practices in homelessness recommendations, all of that comes together to point to this next section of our presentation, the challenges and solutions surrounding the major issues in the community. And so if you'll advance to the next slide, we restructured. Thank you. We restructured the recommendations that we're bringing forward to you all today, building them out as a work plan kind of for the city department and staff to further build out. So we are grouping them around the 6 major issue areas that are findings from all those aforementioned inputs, the interviews, survey, or the interviews and focus group, excuse me, as well as the existing conditions work, the market analysis, and the literature review. And within each issue area, we are trying to provide several potential solutions. So this identifies the fact that there are numerous avenues for the city to pursue to improve conditions or outcomes, knowing that there's budget and staffing and kind of role responsibility limitations. Some issues might be bigger than others. This really puts a lot more choice and a lot more kind of decision-making power in the city's hands. Within each solution, we're going to provide a description of it, kind of tying it back to the issue and how it can help to solve the issue by describing the type of action that it's going to be, the city's role as, potentially a funder or a partner or an advocate, and then also list out the potential partners that the city could connect with to advance the recommendation or the solution. And so this is a good reframing that just recognizes that there's a really wide range of needs amongst the individuals, and there's a wide range of solutions for the city and staff and department to pursue. If you go to the next slide, it steps through the 6 major issue areas we identified as number 1, top of the list. These aren't necessarily in priority order, but the very biggest issue, you can't solve homelessness without housing, is that there are too few affordable housing units available in the city and the surrounding area. I'll elaborate on each one of these in the coming slides. Housing requirements can also be a barrier to re-entry or to coming back off the streets. And that ranges from high security deposits to sobriety and background checks to, again, the availability or needing sobriety treatment centers, treatment options. The third one is about kind of housing instability and particularly eviction. And there's a lot of different ways the city could or could not choose to intervene on this one. Numbers 4 and 5 address the current shelter services and current shelters and services across the community, both that they're inadequate is a strong word here. It just is a shorthand to know that it's not meeting all the different needs from community members who we interviewed and who were participating. And similarly, that the shelters and services are somewhat disconnected. So there is not a centralized navigation area to go to or a one-stop shop or even primarily like key individuals who can connect all the different pieces as individuals try to navigate the system. And then number 6 is about kind of larger stability, and that extends from the income side of the equation, about people needing well-paying jobs, people needing their identification and documentation, transportation, sobriety. So it's a little bit of a larger category. And if you'll advance to the next slide, we'll step through all of these. So offering number 1, that there are too few affordable housing units. This is particularly focused on regulated, deed restricted units that are funded in part by the state or the federal government. And there's an asterisk here because we know that you have a housing action plan that will be identifying how the city can help increase the production of affordable housing. Our colleagues here at Echo Northwest are working on that project. And so we are not going to, I mean, there's a lot of different things you could do here. We're not going to step into that too much here. We've just offered 3 potential solutions, but your housing action plan will offer a lot more detail here. Generally, you can encourage the production and again, here, there's a number of ways you can do that through zoning or through funding or through ordinances. Production of regulated units, increasing vouchers for affordability, and then other kind of smaller programs that could be such as encouraging roommate programs, just to try to increase the actual availability of units, knowing that the demand exceeds supply here.
Can I ask a question on that one? When you say increased vouchers for affordability, are you talking about Section 8 housing vouchers? Those are the only vouchers I know that we get, and they sure aren't being increased between the 3 counties.
Yes, that is what we're referring to. And on this one, when I was describing that there would be several aspects of the recommendation that would be kind of described, this would be an advocacy role. We know that the city does not control those purse strings. We know that vouchers are in short supply and that funding is set by the federal government. So it would really be an kind of a partnering role and an advocacy role, and just understanding the limited influence that the city can have on that one.
Thank you.
However, I'll just note that they are a very effective tool at increasing stability and importantly also preventing homelessness as well. Yes, so number 2, about barriers to reentry. So here again, you'll see a lot of the word advocate, because we know that the city doesn't have as direct influence in these areas, but assisting and advocating for a variety of different ways. There's a lot of ways you can address barriers to reentry, and that might be expanding the security deposit or rent assistance that is already on the ground. It could be increasing sobriety and treatment programs, or again, building or developing more low or no barrier PSH units. Also increasing outreach and case management. We don't have it on the list, but other things the city could do are things like ban the box, where there's a checkbox on the application for rental housing that talks about there's a ban the box kind of measure or initiative that the city could participate in. They could also train on renters' rights, things like that could go on this list, but we haven't raised to the level of including here, just recognizing that there's a number of ways that the city can go about overcoming this issue. I'll pause after each issue area and the ideas we're putting forward if anyone has any questions.
Is that a pause for questions?
So,
Were there any?
Yeah, well, I was thinking, I kind of went over this already with, Nick and Will. And we were thinking about transition homes might be a good idea between, because our shelter's a low barrier. I know some areas they have transition homes which are high barrier, and then that gives them a place to stay and get their foot on the ground to where they can get into housing. I thought that might be something that might be of interest to the council.
Yeah, we actually, it's interesting, Mayor, that you mentioned this because we went after one to launch in January on another property that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And we were set to go, had a little plan, but unfortunately, our application, while it was well received, it didn't cross the barrier to approval, or we would have been able to launch one of these facilities.
Right.
So, yeah.
We're just looking at,
Yeah,
there's
so
new-
funding, that's.
there's new funding coming out from the state. Governor has, is sending a lot of money, and I'm not exactly sure if this will fall on any of that kind of spectrum she's talking about, but I just think that might be kind of a thought. Workforce housing versus market housing has been a topic of discussion between Will, Nick, myself, and other people at the legislature that we've had discussions here. Because when the people say, yeah, we're trying to bring in affordable housing doesn't always equate to what they're saying. It's just another weird term for market housing. It's not really workplace, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, especially when you're looking at, to get into a home in Redmond now, it's $500,000. To get into a home in Madras, it's $300,000 to $400,000. It's crazy. And I cringe the fact that I'm paying less for my mortgage and people are paying for their rent at an apartment. So, those are just comments, Taylor, and I'm sorry, but I was curious. There is a reason when they're talking about the security deposits and background checks, there's a reason for those obstacles. I mean, because if you're an owner of a property and somebody comes in, I mean, it can become very costly for the landowner as well.
yes.
So I don't want to stomp on, when you're talking about renters' rights, there's also the rights of the landlord. So that's why I was thinking about maybe these transition homes might be a good
Yes.
thought to bring in. Anybody else?
So Redmond's had success with the safe parking, which also had reach out, partnered with it. They actually just got more funding from regional funds to support an additional 12 spaces, 2 of which are in Bend. And so looking at models, while I hate saying the D word, taking some of their efforts and seeing how those could be potentially duplicated here, since they're doing trial and errors right now. And then also rooted homes have been fairly successful from what I've seen.
Rooted homes? What's a rooted home?
Workforce development, so they prioritize certain organizations or agencies like medical or law enforcement. To get staff into a home that's no more than $200,000 or 200, yeah, 200,000. So it's again, another thing that they're doing into shoots. Again, I hate to say the D word, but rooted homes would be also interesting to look into.
They're
'Cause-
a land bank, is that right? A community land trust?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
And the people buying the homes have to do all kinds of education and preparedness in order to be able to buy a home. So a lot of what I'm seeing on this, the security deposits, background checks, it all sounds like supportive housing.
Yes.
Instead of buying. Yeah.
Yeah, one was a transitional, so the safe parking is transitional, and then the rooted homes is that buying a home, and it's workforce development focused, so higher income level. And then agencies and organizations actually partnered with them so that their employees would actually get first consideration.
I guess.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Small comment, Taylor, and I don't mean to be provocative about this, but until people are stable enough to work to get income, none of this is, I mean, we need to think about this in the homeless response system, but I mean, there's some things downstream, if you will, that have to happen when we're talking about, you know, having the ability to successfully place a person in a home. You know, you've got to help the individual handle certain baseline issues, or they're not going to be a good candidate to even, I hate to say it, maintain rental housing, much less any of the other high blown, if you will. So I don't mean to be overly skeptical, but kind of from my seat and what I see, there's some downstream issues, I call them the individual factors, that until they're sufficiently handled, some of these other approaches and such aren't going to have a real good shot, because you can't live anywhere without dollars and what have you to support it, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
We do, yes, thank you for that. We do have a few recommendations on number 6 as it relates to housing stability, but I definitely agree with you about upstream and downstream solutions. I just wanted to make sure I captured that adding on slide 12, recommendation number 2, adding a note about transitional housing options, and advocating and partnering with existing organizations that are providing transitional housing options. That can take a number of forms, and I think safe parking can actually be, I don't think it is quote unquote in capital T transitional, you know, in the formal designation by HUD, but forms of housing along the continuum is kind of what I'm thinking, that can allow people to progress and transition off the streets into parking or into other types as they kind of gain stability. Am I hearing that would be a good addition to this item?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I'm more leaning towards actual transitioning homes, not safe parking. I mean, it's actually getting them off the street into
Yeah.
Okay.
some type of home.
I think that's well stated there, to look at this as a continuum. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day. You can't go from point A to Z. And so I think some recognizing that there's a continuum and working that would be
Well,
definitely.
it is kind of, especially if it's a high, if you're getting in transitional housing and it's a high barrier, that's something they earn to get into. Right, and so they earn that to get into that, and that helps them to the next step to get into actual housing.
Yeah, and there has to be some agreements around it. Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I actually would recommend putting that on the prior slide, on too few affordable housing units, recognizing that the stock is limited and that there needs to be a wider range of options all along the continuum. We could add a solution here suggesting the exploration of other alternatives, such as safe parking, and we would need to word it, but recognizing that housing is a continuum and people need options all along that continuum to help them on their journey towards stable housing, something to that effect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Important part was there were supportive services that went along with the safe parking, because it's that stepping stone. If you want to lower the risk of, you know, rental property damage, that might be that in between to get them to a point of stabilizing a little more before inhabiting someone else's.
Okay. I'm being conscious of time. And so on number 2, on that same note about damages, one thing that we have seen in other communities is sort of a risk mitigation pool or a insurance mitigation pool. And that would be where the state and or city can contribute funds to a risk mitigation pool, a pool of funding that landlords can access if and when they experience damages caused by an individual who was previously homeless. And what this does is allows them to file a claim to that pool of that funding instead of to their insurer to see their insurance premiums go up. I think many people in the affordable and shelter industry are experiencing extreme insurance premium increases. And this is one way to still incentivize landlords to to let to these individuals, to rent to these individuals, but make sure that their financial losses are covered without causing insurance premium rates to go up. So that is another thing we could consider adding to this list if that is of interest.
It's very helpful when you,
It's helpful, but I don't know where those funds would come from.
right, exactly.
Mhm.
Or if it's private owners, where folks who have experienced chronic houselessness or homelessness would get the funds to pay the rent in the first place, unless they stack up.
That's where I was going, with recognizing the reality of things is that, yeah, it's until certain stuff happens with the individual.
Right.
They're not gonna, we see, we see fallout 0 to 3 months, 3 to 6, 6 to 12, 1 year plus. I mean, there's statistics. It's almost like a recidivism. No, and it's that form, of course, in the corrections, but it's sort of like analogous to that. That you see certain fallout in terms of, not to be pessimistic, but returns to homelessness. So there has to be, and this is where permanent supportive services for some individuals have to be there and for them to be successful in sustainably maintaining houses. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm hearing that that's not likely a viable solution to offer at this time.
Mhm.
Yeah, not without knowing where that money would come from.
Okay, thank you. All right, so is the group ready to move on to number 3?
Yeah.
So the third issue area we identified, and this is a little bit of a catch-all, but evictions and housing instability can lead to homelessness. So here you'll see that partnering and advocacy is the main theme here for the city's role, but advocating for increasing funding for those existing rent assistance programs and making sure that people don't lose their housing in the first place. Preventing, as we talk about upstream and downstream solutions, preventing homelessness is a major upstream solution and causes, and if you can keep people housed, that just saves them all the trauma and it's more efficient financially as well. Secondly, connecting individuals with existing legal aid organizations. So we know that there are existing services that are provided in other places in Central Oregon. I don't believe there's anything any organization specifically in the city of Madras, but this is one where we would advocate for that centralized navigation center to have all the resources available on hand that could connect the individuals who do need legal representation in the face of an eviction, connecting them to the services that do exist. And then similarly, utilize existing partnerships to educate tenants on their rights and their renters' rights. So again, this is not passing ordinances about tenant protections necessarily. We aren't going that route, but recognizing that there are services and partnering agencies that are already operating in these spaces and that city staff and caseworkers and the services, shelter providers, service providers can reorient and connect people to those services. I'll pause here, any feedback or suggestions for change?
Oh, absolutely. We can find ways to help connect people with those resources if they're out there. Or even find ways to provide that education. The increased funding for existing rent assistance programs, is there something from the state that the state provides for that?
Yeah,
And then-
there's I believe there's emergency rental assistance programs from Oregon Housing Community Services and something called SHAP, SHAP.
What is it called? Cause I know there's neighbor impact, of course. And, then there's that Medicaid,
Interesting.
HRSN funding. And then, last week or a couple weeks ago, Brad Mondoy from the, Victims Advocacy and Legal Law, that we all met with him, and so did DHS and Best Care, and came up with a whole bunch of items that whenever they have an eviction, are gonna get into their system, they can immediately give out for them to give, like, call it the eviction defense fund that's available, those kinds of things. So we're gonna meet every couple months, but I would really like to see that, not
So it sounds like those services are already available. We just have
They
to
are.
get people connected to those
connected
services.
to them, because a lot of them have no idea. By the time you said they go to court with the eviction, they walk in there with deer headlights going, what's happening with the if he does a mediation.
Okay, so we just need to find a better way to make those services known.
Available, yeah.
And we have done a little bit of legwork to provide an overview of different funding sources at the state and where they are at the regional level as well. So we are planning on including that type of information in the final report as well. Are folks ready to move on? Yep, number 4.
Yep.
Okay. And so here you'll again see that we fixed the shorthand. It's not that services and shelters are inadequate, but they are not meeting all the different needs that individuals have. So we did here, as Taylor mentioned, the range of services and ideas about what an ideal shelter might look like, and that differs from every individual. So some potential solutions here are really expanded hours, particularly during extreme weather, cold and hot, so that people have a place to go. Again, ideas about an expanded navigation center, connecting people to the services and amenities that are offered, someplace that is just a one-stop shop that is has the list of resources and the eligibility criteria, and can even assist people with getting documentation or understanding what they need in order to access things. Advocating for wherever systems do exist on sobriety and treatment programs, just advocating and connecting individuals to those. We did hear about a need for increased cultural competency, particularly, I believe, with the tribal members who are nearby, and just making sure that the service providers and shelter operators have that awareness and have some training on how to be culturally competent and I think trauma informed as well. And then, increased outreach and case management. So these are
Can you
all,
expand on that?
excuse me?
The cultural competency. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. And I believe that we heard from individuals that just it's an incredibly important to meet people where they are and to lead engagement, lead case management work with individuals who are experiencing homelessness with a lot of awareness about the trauma that they have been through, trauma-informed care, trauma-informed case management. So cultural competency, just recognizing that that we all have biases and perspectives that we're coming from, and recognizing that one individual's assumption about how people should be living may not be appropriate for the individual they're engaging with. So kind of just recognizing some of those individual perspectives.
Yeah.
And
This was accomplished at the shelter in October, November, 2 sessions. All staff has been trained from a provider that the Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council, COIC, connected us with. So he has been accomplished for shelter services staff here in Madras.
that's great.
And then what I want to say while I'm here, if I may, is A and B are kind of linked. We are doing interviews Thursday and to look to stand up a warming shelter. So I don't believe we're ever ready for 24 hours yet, but that'll take us to 18 hours. And then this summer, we did a cooling center, so we had 18 hours available. So we are practically working on A, B, and E currently at the shelter.
Wonderful.
Dr. Baker's hope was when we were talking about what we have now is just the first phase for the shelter. We were planning and hoping that the next phase would have another building or something right nearby that would have these other services where treatment centers from like Best Care, others who come in and link that service up where they wouldn't have to travel to go find it. But like I said, that's next phase.
Yeah, you can't build Rome.
No.
Yeah.
Great. Any other changes or additions to this one? Okay. So 5, you'll see some actually between all the aforementioned recommendations and I believe number 6, you will see a little bit of duplication because some of these solutions cross multiple issues. But so number 5 is about kind of having that centralized navigation resource center or resource area. It could also be online and a repository of information that is updated and maintained. But the city's role here is again as an advocate and a partner, recognizing that it doesn't do the direct service provision, but it can be that partner and encourage and fund to the extent possible the additional capacity and additional access. So here we have just, calling out for increased coordination. There was a specific mention about improving the need to improve referral and systems, basically that recidivism, for lack of a better word, but the fact that folks may experience homelessness after exiting jail or after exiting a hospital emergency room or something like that, and having a resource that can connect them to services and shelter where available would be just a really great stopgap when people do fall through the cracks of different systems. So again, this is where transit frequency, while it wasn't not everyone, some people still identify transportation as an issue. I think the most common issue cited was about just the bus schedule, not the cost, but just the hours that the bus was operating to other nearby communities for access to those services that are outside the city. But cost was not mentioned as an issue since it's no cost. So this is a summary of the ways that the city could advocate for better connection amongst the existing service and shelter providers.
I'm curious about the jail. Lieutenant, you know if there's what services that the jail has now that can link to this or
No, off the top of my head.
I know in Tillamook, there's somebody there that works. That connects people, well, that was actually for insurance right now. They get connected to Medicaid, Medicare and all that from there.
Other than referring them to the shelter. When they still do that, or if they got. Stop talking about it.
Okay,
I know that there is efforts, Best Care received money from, I think it was the Behavioral Health Share Savings in 2022, at least that funds to increase the MAT, the Medicated Assistant Treatment. For Sublocade, so it's a shot, but that would help lower the risk of overdose after being released, just in case. So I don't know if that ever happened at the jail. That would be one way. And then I know last time I had touched base with the other Jason about coordinated release. Is that something that is generally done in every other county but this one? Between
what does that
this
mean, the
here
coordinated
and the jail?
release?
Coordinated release would be like somebody who's ready to go into treatment. In Kirk County, the way that looks is they have a person they contact, if there's support specialist at Best Care. They say, hey, I'm gonna release them at 8 a.m., not 3 a.m. Be here, they take them, they transport them, they get those things set up in between. I know OHP is an issue because it's shut off during that time, but that's soon not gonna be an issue. But, so that's how they do it in Kirk County,
I
and
know Best Care, they do quite a few where they stay in jail, so they get an opening and take them to treatment.
they go to the jail and drive them.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
Mhm.
Okay, so some of that's already being done then.
Pretty
Should have
much
the other-
most of the
Should have the other
time.
lieutenant here. Okay,
I know our Best Care staff go up 2 or 3 times a week at the jail, any crisis we go up to. We do alcohol and drug assessments up there, and we have had at least a couple recently, go from jail to treatment.
Who's that reported to for visibility?
Pardon?
Who is that reported to for visibility?
What do you mean for visibility?
So that other organizations can see that it's being done.
I'm not sure. You have to ask Heather Cole Martinez or Michelle Elliott that runs the SUD program itself.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay.
So it sounds like maybe item C should be revised because the coordination between jail is already happening. I mean, we have the word improved there, so I don't know if there's room for improvement.
They still got it. I'm sure they still have to improve.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay.
Any
But if
other,
the jail calls and somebody needs to see a counselor or have an SUD assessment, our best care out.
Mhm.
Okay.
any other changes to this item? All right, this is our last one. And this does call to those downstream issues that will affect whether or not someone that can affect whether or not someone is successful in housing when they are placed. So these are recommendations about improving the existing financial and job coaching programs. We know there are some, but that there's always room for improvement, and improved services or connection to services that could help people obtain identification if identification is an item preventing them from filling out a rental history or getting their entitlements like Social Security or Medicare. I wonder if there's anything to add to this list.
What do you think, Trent?
I didn't quite hear that.
Oh, I don't know what else you would add.
Okay. Well, that is all we have for you today. So I just want to make a note that we had a recommendation to on question number 1. Actually, if you could go back to slide 10, which shows the summary. Yeah, here we are. We had a recommendation to add an item just noting that there's a continuum of housing options and that wraparound services are needed for anyone who is outside of permanent housing as to enhance their chances of successful, stable housing. On item number 2, we had a recommendation to add transitional housing options, and safe parking would probably be addressed under that continuum of housing choices and housing options on item number 1 rather than as transitional on item number 2. We also heard about the idea here about workforce housing, which again might go on number 1. I don't feel like we had anything to add on item number 3. Item number 4. Comments on the fact that there has been cultural competency training at the shelter. And so I don't know if that is a call for removal of that item. And then similarly, like just denoting, and we can also just add comments in the report as well, that progress has been made on items A and B about expanding the hours at the shelter. Was there anything else on item 4?
No, I'll leave those comments on there and just add those extra comments. The progress has been made both on A, B, and E.
Okay, wonderful. And then similarly on 5, comments that the jail does offer some of these services on letter C, but we won't remove it because we can always improve on the existing programming that's offered. With that, really that just changes our item number 1 and 2. We are hoping, and I know there's not a ton of time left in this meeting, but we are hoping to receive an approval from you all with those about the offer about the recommendations that we've put forward with the aforementioned changes. So, Mayor, I would ask if you could help us with that.
Would anybody like to make a motion?
I so moved.
I have a motion to approve this presentation, go forward to the council. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? And you shall have it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all very much for having us today and for your continued work to help us improve these recommendations. As I mentioned, we do think that they are stronger having come back to you today than they were in September. And we certainly appreciate all the work you're doing in your community. So thank you.
And thank you. This is I enjoyed this presentation much better than the last one. Thank you. Strong work on that.
Mhm.
Is there any further discussion?
Oh, I will let you know that, I'm retiring in mid-January. And so,
It's like the domino effect or what?
yeah, right, I know it, but I've been, well, you get on Medicare and you do all that good stuff and you get old. And you're doing it for 50 years, it's time for a new chapter. So Chandler Cruz will be taking my position as, running supportive housing program at Best Care, so.
And she'll be your,
Chandler, I'll have him are we gonna have him in January?
yes,
Okay, so I'll bring him in January,
bring him, be introduced so we can
Yep.
have him appointed by the council.
that'd be great, thank you, yes.
And I did mention this to the mayor, but December 31st is my last day prior to retirement. That's been known for about 6.5 months to my board. So I'm in the closing 3 weeks as of today. And so we also talked about the new shelter services director. And kind of a combo executive director for the organization has been hired. So the mayor talked about the same process to bring him and have him introduced. And then the group can decide to take him forward to the council.
Who's that?
His name is Truett Schilling. True TT. Last name Schilling.
Who's the other? Huh?
Taylor, Madeline, thank you for your report. Did you have anything else you want to bring up?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything for the board or committee?
I think just the point in time count. We're hoping for a stronger count this year. Public health is supporting the administrative burden and the lead organization will be the faith-based network, but public health has volunteered to help just organize, support, provide some hygiene products, and then we'll bring our little mobile unit up. Still getting everything planned with everybody, but really banking for a much better count this year.
When is that?
This is pit count.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the point in time count.
Is it gonna be the 28th or 29th?
What?
So,
25th?
Where you stayed tonight, the 27th, right?
yeah, where you stayed the night, the 27th, the
Yeah.
count will go from the 28th through the February 4th.
Right, through the 4th.
Well, it'd be options, whatever Jefferson Matters decides to.
Well, what happens is, Dwayne, it's a night. But you're able to work that, refer back to that night for a week period of time. So you have a week to do the work to get information about the night, if that makes sense.
Sure,
And
I get
so-
it.
So the Homeless Leadership Coalition has been facilitating coordinating, throughout the Tri-County region leads. And Gene Robick on my staff is the lead for Jefferson County. So we'll see there, but there's I think enhanced effort upstream to, downstream rather to, to get some coordination going. So hopefully we'll.
So in the past, the veteran service officers and the VA clinic and Ben have participated in this, and they have,
They're on my list.
okay,
here.
for Laura,
Mhm.
okay,
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
Right.
Everybody, this is Dwayne Ledford. He's one of our 2 code enforcement officers. For those who have not met him.
And if you need or want, they have area support.
Okay, yeah, I know Jean and I were gonna connect with you today. It doesn't look like she's here today.
No. She's not able to.
Just, yeah, so, yes, I can be more to you about it and get some more input, because this year's gonna be successful, didn't it?
Gonna get it done.
Mhm.
All right, anything else? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and adjourn at 3 o'clock. Thank you, everybody.
Next meeting will be,
Next month. You know? The next meeting? No. It'll be the same normal Monday of the month, whichever
Second
Monday that
Monday.
is. Yes, the second
Second
Monday of the
Monday.
month, same time, same
Yeah.
bat channel.
Okay. Look at my calendar.